As Leicester City and Marti Cifuentes end pre-season off with a 2-0 win against Fiorentina, that first game against Sheffield Wednesday is just one day away. And today we'll be looking at tactically what we can expect from Marti Cifuentes and Leicester City going into the brand new season. So as I just mentioned, pre-season for Cifuentes and Leicester City was a pretty successful one at Seagrave, Austria in the training camp, and then at the King Power Stadium as well. 5 out of 6 games won. Now if you want to know a little bit more about one of those games, the tactics, the sort of style that we have previously seen, then take a look at my previous video on Marti Cifuentes. But if you're here to stay, then let's talk a little bit about what we've seen so far. Marti Cifuentes has incorporated a very high risk, fluid, rotational, aggressive, very front-footed play that mixes short, intricate possession football with direct play. Off the ball, the press is very high, moving, very aggressive, and it's always triggered when the play goes backwards, sideways, or falls to a short. When they stand off in a 4-2-3-1/4-4-2 like shape, looking to block the passing lanes. Cifuentes himself has had quite the impact on the Leicester City squad, coming across very strong as both a manager and a coach, making a journeyman like route to this Leicester City job. Now Cifuentes is a tactically quite flexible manager through his different time in different countries, leagues, teams, and it's shown at Queen's Park Rangers, but it also shown a glimpse of that against Fiorentina. So let's have a look at that tactical flexibility and what it looked like. Now in pre-season so far, we've seen a bit of a mix between a 3-2-5 setup with Hamza Choudhury tucking into the back line and a bit of a 2-3-5. So it's been a bit of a mix and match, but it's a rotational play. So the structure and shape isn't so identifiable and put down to a marker. Always. It changes. What we saw against Fiorentina, against this 5-3-2 out of possession shape, was a very natural position for the fullbacks. The play, as I say, was very rotational, so it was difficult for them to track as they are a few weeks behind in their pre-season preparations for the new season, but we saw Hamza Choudhury and Luke Thomas take these very natural positions as the fullbacks. Boubacar Samari in a lone pivot as Oliver Skips joined this right half space and Bilal El-Chanous shifted over here. So as you can see, a 2-3-5 shape or a 4-1-5, however you want to look at it. But what I want to have a look at here is that the fullbacks are in very natural positions, and Fiorentina sort of looked to go man for man, but they didn't. If we put everybody man to man right now, you've got the 2 strikers onto the centre backs, you've got this midfielder in and around Boubacar Samari. But what we've seen was the midfield 3 being extremely well stretched, and this meant a lot of space in the pockets for Bilal El-Chanous and Oliver Skip. This created a lot of room for them to receive the ball because the wide centre backs were never going to follow all the way down to here. They simply were not that aggressive, and of course they were a little bit rusty in their play, but Bilal El-Chanous would rotate so much with Luke Thomas, meaning he'd pick up the ball in and around here quite randomly, and you don't really want Bilal El-Chanous within these positions a lot, and Luke Thomas here, but what it did create was quite complex play for the opposition to understand, to anticipate, creating a lot of space within these areas because the centre-backs were not following, and with the energy of Oliver Skip, it was very difficult for them to track. You can see it in a move here. It's a little lower in build-up, but as you can see, created a lot of space for Skip and allowed Abdul to move 1v1 with his wing-back. Now with this tactical tweak, it really did get the best out of Abdul and Steffi Mavridis. They were pin-backed 1v1 versus their wing-backs and beat them nearly every single time. And with the physical presence of Jordan Ayew shifting across to wherever the ball is, sometimes that wide centre-back was pin-backed, meaning Abdul had a lot of space to drive into with the ball, where there was large distances between the wide centre-back and the wing-back, as you can see for his magnificent goal. So now we understand a little bit about Cifuentes and his tactical flexibility. let's have a look at the predicted 11 for the Sheffield Wednesday game. Now, as you can see here, we've moved over to a slightly different tactics board, but this is how I imagine Leicester City are going to set up against Sheffield Wednesday tomorrow. You've got Abdul, Fatawu, Elchanous, Ayew and Martí as that front four, with Harry Winks coming in for Boubacar Soumaré. Now, of course, you've got decent flexibility here on the bench with youngsters like Will Alves, Jeremy Monga, Ben Nelson, and then you've also got players like James Justin, Ricardo Pereira, Koulibaly, Soumaré, Christensen, etc, etc. But this is how I imagine the team will set up. I think Harry Winks works a little bit better in that ball-playing defensive midfield role as an overall playmaker than Boubacar Soumaré. They're both very forward passing and do lack that defensive side to their game, but I think Winks just edges it for championship quality, as we saw 2 seasons ago. A front four of Martí, Elchanous, Fatawu and Ayew could be devastating. You've got physicality, you've got runners, and you've got good amounts of technical ability. Now, the shape, I see it being quite similar to what we see against Fiorentina. Elchanous moving into this left half space, but drifting, roaming a lot, picking up the ball in different spaces, allowing Martí to drive in, as he is one of Leicester's most prolific players. And it's important that you get your most prolific players into these good positions. I see Oliver Skipp moving into this position as Harry Winks takes up the lone pivots, allowing for Chowdhury to move in here and Luke Thomas to do the same. Now, there are slight concerns. Harry Winks in a lone pivot isn't the best thing in the world. Physically, he's just not that good. When it's time to win a duel, when it's time to clear up the play, I don't think he's very good. But the energy of Oliver Skipp could cover for that, and Hamza Chowdhury. The two are very energetic, athletic, but most importantly, aggressive. And that is a big thing, not just in Premier League football, but the Championship as well. Oliver Skipp within these spaces isn't the most ideal thing in the world. He works best when he can just sit back, clean up the play, and then come alive in the counter press. But with his energy, it does create a lot of problems for the opposition. He can dip in and out of the pivot, but also out of possession. I think that's where he brings his most qualities. He's very aggressive in the press, but once the press is beaten, Oliver Skipp is somebody who can recover, who can defend in transition, and ultimately just win back the ball. It's very effective. It's somebody that you want in your team. So for 25 million, it was an extortionate fee, but you could see Oliver Skipp come to some value. And with the space he's going to pick up, it's going to create more space for Abdul Fatawu running in. And Abdul Fatawu, as we all know, extremely fast, direct, raw, which is brilliant. But in terms of that rawness, I think this shape probably gets the best out of that. Fatawu does sometimes lose the ball quite a bit. It's very natural because he's an exciting player that wants to try different things. He's not a very experienced head. But with Hamza Chowdhury and Oliver Skipp close to him, it allows Leicester to be safer in transition, a little more secure, which is important because Marti Cifuentes has a little bit more risk to his style of play. But there's a lot to like here. You can easily achieve wide overloads, as you can already see here, with Chowdhury, Skipp and Fatawu creating that triangle. And as you can see on the other side, with Martí, Luke Thomas and Bilal Elchanous, and even Jordan Ayew. Now, Jordan Ayew isn't the most natural 9 in the world, so he can drop into pretty much any space and do a pretty good job at it. You've got somebody like Vestergaard, Winks and then Ricardo on the bench, and somebody such as Bilal Elchanous dropping in deep here as well, who can access these players. And that pass from Vestergaard all the way to Ayew, I think, will be quite common, either tomorrow or for the season ahead. Jordan Ayew can drop in deep and excel and get the ball out to Abdul Fatawu out here, but the wide overloads will be very effective, and I think it's going to be good to see. I think the left side is going to work better than the right side. Obviously, you could have Ricardo Pereira over here as well, which will ensure the fluidity on the right side is a bit better than Oliver Skipp and Hamza Chowdhury. But on the left side, you've got Elchanous, who can just pick up the ball anywhere. His ball control is ridiculous for the league that he's going to be in, should he stay for Leicester in the Championship. But he can rotate within these spaces. Luke Thomas can move in here, Martí can move in here. It's very easy rotation, which you could see a very fluid Leicester side tomorrow. once again allowing for Steffi Mavadidi to come into these spaces quite naturally. And with Belau El-Chenous dropping in deep, he doesn't score the most goals in the world. He's more of a creative asset than somebody who's going to score himself. So this will unleash the best out of Mavadidi, get him within these spaces, score some goals, but also bring Ayew into play as well. And of course, the amazing Abdul Fatawu. Within this side, you've got runners in Fatawu, Mavadidi, even El-Chenous, and other players such as Jeremy Monga off the bench. You've also got a very physical number 9 who is quite prolific within his career. You've also got underlapping midfielders with Belau El-Chenous and Oliver Skipp, and then you've also got wide overloads, tools to creatively break down teams with ball playing excellence from the likes of El-Chenous, Winks and Yannick Vestergaard. I personally would love to see Ben Nelson within the team instead of Vestergaard, as we know Vestergaard isn't the fastest, but Vestergaard's ball playing might just take the win here, unfortunately, as a long-term basis for Leicester. Caleb Okoli could be really aggressive within this role because he likes to come forward within the duels and win the ball back. But Hamza Chowdhury is somebody I really see do breaking into that Leicester City team. He is an aggressive asset who sometimes can go a little bit overboard in terms of that department, but he could be really key here in getting the best out of Harry Winks and pinning a team back. Ricardo Pereira is quite unreliable within his fitness, but if you want somebody a bit more technical than Oliver Skipp within these spaces, then what you could do is actually play Ricardo Pereira here. Enzo Maresca did it against Leeds in that 3-1 defeat and it worked wonders. So Chowdhury and Ricardo could naturally rotate, but you got a bit more technical excellence, somebody who can also cross the ball, break a team down and do a great job. I think one of the best things about this side is the creative tools to break a team down. Of course, Oliver Skipp is no Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall in the final third, but you've got somebody like Belau El-Chenous who can create enormously for Mavadidi, for Ayew, for Fatawu, and he can even shoot himself. At this level, you'd expect him to get a few more goals. But Cifuentes with this system could really impress me, because you're giving Belau El-Chenous, one of the best players in the championship this season, if he stays, the freedom to roam, the freedom to do whatever, with Will Alves as the understudy. You've got Jeremy Monga as the understudy, as the rotational player with Steffi Mavadidi. There's a lot to like. But this moving, very fluent, very rotational system could be massively fun to watch. And the whole moving process of players rotating is a little bit different from Enzo Maresca. I think you are going to see a much higher risk, much enjoyable style of play in the championship for Leicester City this season. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, smash a like and subscribe to the channel. Of course, depending on the points deduction, we might not know where Leicester City finish this season. But do you think the Foxes will be promoted at the first time of asking once again? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.